Good day. The present scenario of global change that has culminated in various unwanted occurrences calls for an urgent need of radical solutions. It has been clearly evident that the present state of ozone layer depletion is due to the constant release of greenhouse gases, such as carbon monoxide, into the atmosphere through various means, such as from the industries and from the use of non-biodegradable materials. Nevertheless, it has been discovered that there are many other factors that contribute to this phenomenon which have gone unnoticed. Among these other factors is a high population, which will be discussed in today's talk show in the African context, considering our high population growth rate. And one question we need to ask ourselves: how do we as individuals take the lead in conserving our precious environment? I'm Aisha Moye, and you're watching Middle Talk Show. Stay tuned for more. Welcome back. Once again, you're watching the Middle Talk Show. Now, to further discuss the present issue I earlier stated, I'll have here with me on the show Ms. Wairi, a demographer, and as well as Ms. Bimbo, a microbiologist. And to get a point of view from a civil engineer, I'll be having Engineer Rume on the show. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Right now, we'll be talking about the population and the environment. I'll be starting with Ms. Wairi. Please do tell us, what do you think is man's contribution to the high population growth rate?
Thank you very much. Man can affect his population through his lifestyle. For instance, a person who indulges in premarital sex, it could lead to an unplanned pregnancy, which in turn leads to an increase in population. Then again, let's not forget that we live in a patrilineal society, that's looking at Nigeria and Africa at large, where the family name is carried on by the male child. Every family desires to have a male child. So for a woman who has only female children, there's a very high tendency for her to continue giving birth until she finds a male child. It could look like nothing, but in a real sense, it adds to the population.
So in other words, it's saying that the constant practice of premarital sex and extramarital affairs, and also the present culture of the Africans, that is wanting a male child in every family, actually adds to the high population growth rate. Thank you very much for that great comment, Ms. Wairi. Okay. Now, I would like to ask Ms. Bimbo, how does a high population affect the environment?
Okay, thank you very much. Population affects the environment in the sense that an increase in population induces pressure on our natural resources and leads to an increase in demand for these resources.
What kind of demands are you talking about here?
Okay, did you actually know that about 1.6 billion trees are cut down each year to produce diapers for children? And when these trees are cut down, they are replaced, leading to a high level of deforestation. And we need these trees to filter out excess CO2 from the environment. And when they are not filtered out, they go out into the ozone layer and deplete the ozone layer. And also, an increase in population leads to an increase for demand for food supply, and also an increase in disposal of waste. And microorganisms act on these waste products and degrade them, leading to the production of methane gas. Methane gas is not good for our ozone layer. Also, to meet the supply of food, to feed the population at large, we need to embark on the use of fertilizers and other chemical substances. These chemical substances have detrimental effects on our environment at large. It's washed into the water bodies and drains into our groundwater table, and also evaporates into the environment, leading to a high level of ozone layer depletion.
Sorry, are you saying that the use of fertilizer for food production is a bad practice?
No, I'm not saying that the use of fertilizer for food production is a bad practice, but excessive use of fertilizer has a large detrimental effect in our environment due to the harmful gases that are emitted from the radioactive effects on fertilizer.
Okay, so in other words, you're saying more population means more demand on the environment, therefore more chemicals into the ozone layer for depletion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that brilliant comment. Now that we've established that a high population has a detrimental effect on the environment, Ms. Wairi, how do you think then can we control this population growth rate, considering the African society we live in?
One of the major causes of high population is an increased birth rate. So in order to control the population, we have to control the birth rate.
How how do we control birth rates, considering Africa's culture and way of life?
That's a very good question. It's not going to be easy because Africans generally need this driving force. So if we get something like a policy, more like emulating China's one-child policy.
China's one-child policy. And Nyarume, what do you think about that? Would it work in Africa?
Sincerely, I do not really have a clear understanding of this one-child policy. And I do not know if Ms. Vare would mind elaborating or explaining what this one-child policy entails.
The one-child policy was made by the Chinese government, which states that every family in China is expected to have not more than one child.
Okay. I am African. We are all African. I'm sure the crowd is made up of mostly Africans. The thing is, bringing this to the African context, the way we think, the way we work, our moral ethics, our culture, bringing a policy such as the one-child policy would not work. It would be almost impossible to implement. Now, why do I say this? No African family with potent, or should I say fertile individuals, very capable of procreation, would waste such a God-given ability on having just one child. If we were to take a poll of everybody in this audience, everyone seated here, the number of people who had one child, the number of people who had children, the ratio of number of people who had children to the number of people who have a child would be 100 to 1 or thereabouts. All I'm trying to say is it's very unnatural for the African man to have just a child. Telling the average Nigerian to go from a no child limit to a one-child policy is like telling him to come from walking on his feet to walking on his head. It cannot work. All the same, we cannot neglect the fact that implementing such a policy is going to have immediate adverse effects on the general population. Like, take for instance, when it was implemented in China, did it have any adverse effects of any sort?
Of course, there were cases of abortion, infant homicide, but everything that has an advantage has a disadvantage. We cannot deny the impact it has had on population growth in China. In 1979, when the policy was initially introduced, the population growth rate of China was 2.7%, and presently it's about 1.9%. That's a very remarkable change. And I actually think it's going to help our population growth rate.
Very understandable, Ms. Vare. Now listen to what I'm trying to say. In the long run, China was able to achieve the objective, no doubt. What I'm trying to put to you is that we can bypass everything China has to go through. If we can find something more African-oriented, something more Nigerian-oriented, something we are more favorably disposed towards, something that would work for us. We would not have to go through the infant homicide, the abortion, all they had to go through to achieve our objective. Our population growth rate is explosive, no doubt, but we can curb it if we can find what works for us, not what works for them. Thank you.
Wow. But what do you think about this situation?
I agree with Engineer Rumi. The one-child policy would definitely not work in Africa, considering our mentality and our way of life. But I think we could actually emulate or embark on a different policy in this sense.
What kind of policy would you be referring to now? I mean, a policy, still a policy. What's the difference?
A different policy in the sense that we could enforce a law that a maximum number of children per family is the standard for Africans. For instance, we could say 3 children per family. This will help us curtail our population compared to the 11 per family, 6 children per family.
Yeah. I think so. It's much better than the football club or the baseball group, or talking about the basketball team. I mean, and the extra substitutes and the referee.
Yeah.
That's a really good change. From 11 children to 3. Very good. Yeah, I like that. Thank you very much for your responses. That was a very good one. Thank you very much. In other words, means like population, a high growth rate of population has a very large adverse effect on the environment. When we come back, we'll be discussing on more of this. Remember, you're watching Mido Talk Show. Stay tuned for more.
Just your own way to contribute to the environment.
Tell them the advantages of the policy.
Try to maximize waste around you, prevent wastage, and dispose your waste properly.
Welcome back. Once again, this is Mido Talk Show. Earlier on, we heard from our guests about the effects of population on the environment. That is, the detrimental effects of population on the environment. And Engineer Rume and Ms. Bimbo here helped us to find a solution to that effect. Considering our African society, Ms. Bimbo here suggested a 3-child policy for each family. That's a very remarkable change from the 11 children to 3. That's a very good one. Okay, now we'll be taking questions from our audience. I would like to ask audience, is there any question? Yeah, one.
Given the policy proposed, how do you think we as individuals will feature in conserving our environment?
That's a very good one. Thank you very much. And Yarume, you can help us answer that question?
It's all about being one step ahead. Everything is very practical. You want to take the lead, you have to move faster than those that are behind you. She spoke about deforestation. You can do the opposite by means of afforestation. Every tree that's cut down, you plant 2. It's your effort it's your personal effort you are making towards conservation of the environment. Even if it means wherever you go, wherever you are staying, whatever building you are inhabiting, just make sure you have plants around you. And just your own way of contributing to the environment. That will be more than enough.
Thank you very much, Engineer Rumi. I would like to also hear Ms. Wairi's comment on that.
Okay, thank you. We could take it upon ourselves to educate everyone around us. Tell them the advantages of the policy, that it goes beyond the abortion. They could actually have family planning instead of the abortion. Just educate everyone around you.
Yeah, that's a very good one. I think that will also work, considering African women that are just always at home, farming, and then they have a lot of time to give birth to litters of children. That's a very good one. Ms. Bimbo, what do you think about this? How do we take the lead as individuals in conserving our environment?
We could take the lead as individuals in conserving our environment by helping out to recycle waste products, because these waste products have lots of harmful effects on our environment. just try to maximize waste around you, prevent food wastage, and dispose your waste properly to help us prevent environment from getting decayed.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, I hope we've answered your question. As individuals, we have a personal responsibility to conserve this God-given environment. I mean, in the long run, if our population keeps on growing the way it's growing, it will be very bad for us. We won't have more trees to show our children. There will be no animals to show our grandchildren. I mean, your children will probably not know what it means, like the grass touch me not, or they'll probably not know what elephant grass is, or they'll probably not be able to see a mango tree around. So we need to conserve our environment. It's very important. It will also help our atmosphere and help in the ozone layer depletion. Thank you very much. We've been deeply enlightened. We now understand that as individuals, we have personal responsibilities to conserve our precious environment. Indeed, if we look at it in the long run, I mean, if our population keeps on growing and growing, at the end of the day, we'll have nothing to show our children. We'll have no trees to show to our children. Some animals will have gone extinct. My children probably don't know what an orange tree looks like. Or let's say probably the next 20 years, we won't even know what a mango tree looks like. So we need to take personal responsibilities as individuals to conserve our precious environment. We've come to the end of the show, and I'm sure you all had a good time. Thank you very much for coming. Once again, this is Libido Talk Show. See you next week. Remember, conserve your environment.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Money Talk Show. I'm Mona, and with me I have my co-host, Eli.
Hello, Mona, and how wonderful you look today.
Oh, thank you.
Looking like this, how are we guys supposed to be able to come up to you and all?
Eli, please, don't watch me in public, please.
I'm just saying.
Well, thank you so much. I have to thank Uju. She did my makeup. She was really lovely. Well, I just want to say thank you all so much for coming. You all look so lovely. I really hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back very shortly with the guests. Thank you.
And we're back. I do hope you guys are having fun. Today we're talking on lifestyle. We're talking on lifestyle of the Nigerian. We're looking at it from the perspective of how Western culture has affected our lifestyle as Nigerians. Now with us today, talking on this topic is Bayo, a marriage counselor. Praised, president of a philanthropist organization. We have Chinomsum, a proprietor of a crèche. We have Moyo, professor of child psychology. We have Chiamaka, a guidance counselor. And we have Olatunji, a politician in the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. And as you all know, as he said, we're talking about lifestyle and how Westernization has affected us as a people. And I want to know, in the area of marriage, thinking back to the way that it used to be, way back when the man would just approach a family, you know, pay a bunch of money and take his wife. And then we had what I'll call the master-servant relationship, where the woman was forced to be submissive, really didn't have a voice, as opposed to what it is today, when a woman has liberty to date and she has a choice as to who she takes as her husband. Looking at these two scenarios, if I can put it that way, which do you think is better? Do you think that we should stick to what it is today or go back to the way that it used to be? Bayo, what do you think?
Thank you very much. You know, experience, like they say, is the best teacher and often the mother of all inventions and discoveries. I feel from our perspective that the female child should be exposed to dating experiences. This will enable her to become a better person in her marriage. You know, and also, she also has some rights, which are also embedded in the Constitution of Nigeria. And Section 42 of Nigerian Constitution expressly states that if every individual should not be discriminated on the basis of sex. So it means that for a female child, she should be allowed to experience love in a relationship. And she mustn't just wake up one morning and just go and marry. You should just experience it. You should give her the privilege, the same way they give a male child the same privilege. You should allow her to experience relationship while it is growing up.
Excuse me, Mr. Bayo. Talking in experience, human beings have very diverse, dynamic, and complex behavior. So who told you that my relationship with Mr. John would define my relationship with Mr. Bayo, or define my relationship with Mr. James? There are different ways which you can learn and experience. For example, in those days, you see parents looking or calling their children to talk to their children. Parents were real role models for their children then. Parents even had diverse means of making their children know things about marriage and relationship issues, because children look up to parents, as I said. And in some communities, parents have different, like in Sangala people of the Kaduna states, when a relationship should break up, they find it very difficult to communicate with people. They find it difficult to communicate with people in the outside world because they are some sort of stigmatized. So because they really don't want to break up, the man or the woman has to do anything possible to make sure that the two of them understands each other, live together happily and well. So what do you have to say concerning the experience?
Well, thank you very much. From my own opinion, there are some laws that are repugnant to human justice because they do not fit into the societal construct of these modern days. You know, for example, the example you just gave, those laws are inhuman. These are laws that should be disposed and they should be discarded because we are moving to a world whereby westernization is taking.
Excuse me, Mr. Bayo. When you're going into a relationship or when you're going into marriage, we have this common slogan of for better, for worse, isn't it? What is the essence of for better, for worse?
For better, for worse, as you said, it only applies when the relationship is going on smoothly. You cannot allow your female child to go on in a relationship or a marriage whereby the man constantly batters her and he constantly puts her under pressure and abuses her. Or can you allow your female child to go on to marry a man that constantly rapes her? That is repugnant to human justice.
Excuse me, you said marriage. In marriage, is there anything like raping?
Sometimes there is what they call raping in marriage. What is rape? A rape is when you have a sexual intercourse with a female without her consent.
Excuse me, Mr. Bayo. When you're talking of for better, for worse, I think we are now, because of modernization or westernization, the girl or the female child or male child, they use divorce as a means of excuse. They are lazy people. They use divorce as a means of excuse for not trying to work out their relationships well. For example, I spoke of the Sangala people of Kaduna State. If by any means there is a form of disagreement between the two of them, they don't divorce themselves. Why? Because they know that the community would not accept. They themselves will look awkward to the community.
Sorry, excuse me, please. They've not experienced freedom. When you experience freedom, then you know how it looks like, and you know what it looks like.
Freedom to jump from a relationship to another.
Excuse me, sir.
Freedom to move from John to James.
And this is expressly.
Is that what you call rights, Mr. Bayo? I wonder where African values are.
Hello.
Seriously, Lisa, I think you need to.
But I want to ask you something. I've heard what both of you have said, and you've said very important things. But I want to ask you, do you understand the concept of suffering and smiling? The Sangala people that you mentioned who don't leave their relationships because they'll be judged by the world into the ground, as it were. Do you not think that some of these women are very unhappy, implicitly unhappy, but they just cannot leave because of what the world would say? I don't know if you agree with me, but I don't think that is enough reason to stay in a relationship. I mean, I think we've said enough on this. I think that we have, and I really thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. But I really believe, that a woman should have her rights, and a relationship should be happy. It should be full of love and joy, and anything other than that. I mean, I personally am not down with it. That's my personal opinion. But thank you both very much.
And we are moving on, and now we're talking on child raising. We're raising children now, and we're trying to compare the Nigerian perspective to the Western perspective. I mean, here we have this constant belief that spare the rod, spoil the child, so you just have to flog your child. But when we have the Western culture, they go for supposedly better ways to discipline their children that do not involve physically harassing these children. So the question is, where do we say it is better? Do we just stop flogging, or do we keep at this? Sure, do you have anything to say to us?
Yes, I'm of the opinion that we should flog our children whenever they go wrong. And I'll put this to you. If you flog your children, this experience from flogging helps to curb their action even when you are not there present. Flogging your child actually helps to pass a message across, telling them that there are consequences to misconduct in life. And these consequences are not easy ones. They are quite painful. So that is why I'll flog my child. My parents spanked me.
I have to disagree with you here, because I strongly believe that once you flog a child, you're putting fear into the person. You're putting fear into the child. For authority cannot be based on flog him because he stole something, for example. The child is around you. He knows that. You're a parent, for goodness sake. You're a parent. You're in a position of authority. But then when he's with his friend, when he's trusted, his friend, you don't know how he behaves. He's going to do the way he pleases, the way he seems sweet, because he knows that there is no authority, there is no authority in God that is the fear. But then that's lose authority, but then cannot lose the essence. And then you win the battle. That is when the child is around you, he knows that he misbehaves. But then when he's with his friend, you don't know how he behaves. He's going to do the way he pleases, the way he seems to be, because he knows that there is no authority, there is no authority in code that is the fear. But then that loses but then you lose the essence, and then discipline.
Fear actually needs context.
No, that isn't always true. We were all once children, and we know that when our parents were not there, we wanted to do this, but then we remembered, yes, they're going to flog me. What do we do? Like, oh, is anyone watching? And we do what you want. No, that isn't always true. We were all train our children, and we know that when our parents to be stereotyped, we don't train them to be crazy. No, that isn't always true. We were all once children, and we know that when our parents were not there, we wanted to do this, but then we remembered, yes, they're going to flog me. What do we do? The way, like, oh, to be stereotyped, watching, and then what you want to do. As Africans, we train up our children to be dogmatic, to do the way, to be stereotyped. We don't train them to be creative, to think well.
Actually, talks about when by put a hand on fire, that then a pacifier. Actually, how would that stop and release your fire? But by that stage, like, we're not talking about when they are mature, when they have their child, when they can think like
First of all, I don't think you should be a child and his hand is on fire. But you stop doing that.
You take a child that's my 1-year-old child,
we have so many
decides
scenarios where
put her hand in
these
fire,
Western
and I
children
take
become
a pacifier.
to their parents
How did that stop her?
because they know that nothing is in hand their fire.
Whether
Worst
she
case
sees
scenario,
that
so
fire,
stay in their
she
room.
won't go near the fire again.
First of all, we have I don't think it takes you to the child and his hand is on fire. Children become stop doing that to their parents. Also, as to because they know that we have so many scenarios where these Western children become rude to their parents because they know that nothing is going to happen to them. Worst case scenario, they encounter
I
stay
want to
in their
know,
room.
as African parents,
Laptops
how
or
do you
whatever.
deal with this? Because, I mean, a lot of people
Flogging, not
understand
flogging.
the reality. A lot of people don't understand the reality. Very controversial issue, suicide on a very much because of stigma that's associated with homosexual. There's something that I think is a very controversial issue, but it just must be discussed. It is the issue of homosexuality. I want to know, as African parents, how do we deal with this? Because, I mean, a lot of people don't understand the reality. A lot of people don't understand the reality. I mean, people commit suicide on almost a daily basis because of the stigma that's associated with being homosexual. Now, as parents, please, as an African parent, how do you handle this?
He's saying that I don't believe normally that I'll give birth to an African child. First of all, as a politician, in Nigeria, Republic of Nigeria.
But then you know that the fact that you don't
like to
believe in
say
something does not mean that it does not exist.
I don't believe in it.
So what exactly are you saying?
In Nigeria, when someone is caught, it's meant to go for a 40 years.
There are other human beings who are homosexual. Their parents are all kinds of people, including politicians. So what exactly are you
Saying
saying?
that I don't believe right normally that I'll give birth to an African child.
So what exactly are you saying? What are you trying to make you understand? is that it is real. I mean, but then you know that the fact that you don't believe
Regardless
in
of what it is
something doesn't mean that
against,
it
it's a real thing. I personally know people.
So what exactly are you saying? You don't believe that you can give birth to, I mean, I'm sorry, but you're a human being, and there are other human beings who are homosexual. Their parents are all kinds of people, including politicians. So what exactly are you saying?
I've come across kids who have serious issues with their self-esteem.
What I'm trying to make you understand is that it is real.
Their parents are not approving of who they are.
Regardless of what
Now,
it
the
is
first
against,
step in
it is a real thing. I personally know people.
From a parent's
Okay, and their parents are
is to
politicians.
realize that
I'm sorry, please.
your child being homosexual has nothing to do with your self-esteem. That's 8 years of experience as a guardian, everything to do with that child. I've come across kids. Second step is to actually that serious issue with their self-esteem, embrace your child. Is to realize that is what their parents do not take yourself out of your shoes. Now, the first step in handling homosexuality from a parent's perspective is to realize that your child being homosexual has nothing to do with you. It has absolutely nothing to do with you and everything to do with that child. That is the first step. The second step is to actually, in that space, in that time, embrace your child. Because that is what they want. You should take yourself out of your shoes. Step in your child. But as parents, we should realize that when we groom up our kids, they actually go forth and make their own families. Making their own families, and then they make a society. So if your child is broken, your child, when a child is broken, that child can't transfer something whole. So once a child is broken and a family is broken, it just reverberates to a broken society. So I think we should handle it with love. Love and care, that is just our main thing.
Well, thank you both very much for your contribution on this. I mean, I really have to say that I agree with her on treating these people with love, seeing as she's the guidance counselor here. She's the one who has more experience with these people. You know, I personally even know people who are just depressed and who are suicidal. I mean, I was stressed people who have killed themselves on the basis of the stigma that is associated with being a homosexual. I don't think it's something the world will accept just immediately, but I do agree with you on treating them with love. I think it does make for a much better society. Thank you both very much.
Well, I personally do not completely agree with her, but all well and good. We'll be back shortly with the comments or question and answer session with the audience. Thank you very much.
And we're back. Thank you so much for staying with us. We have a comment from someone in the audience. Let me have you, please.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to add that I don't consider homosexuality to be something that's hereditary or a genetic mutation or something that was, you know, inherent in the human. But I believe it's a choice, because everyone that is a homosexual in Nigeria, you find that over 70% of the population, they are mostly bisexuals actually. So for the fact that they could have agreed to have sex with the other sex that is not their same sex, it means that it's a choice. It means that they find some sort of fun with the opposite sex also. So being with the same sex is a choice. Okay, let me give an example of what I mean. In the secondary schools, mostly all girls or all boys schools, you find that there are a lot of homosexuals there. And I consider it to be as a result of selfish erotic desires. And then there's no one else available. You don't want to masturbate, but you need someone to be there, you know, to be your companion in your acts. And particularly, there's a girl or there's a boy, and he's active, he's real, he's human. You can touch him, you can do all of that. So I think that's where homosexuality comes from. People who have selfish erotic desires and have no opportunity or little opportunity to get access to the opposite sex. And if you're going to ask me, what about a situation whereby there's the opposite sex and still they have relations with the same person? I believe that when that happens with a child and it is encouraged, you find that the parents of that child or something, or the people surrounding the person must have encouraged that act in some way or the other. I don't particularly agree with you, Miss Guidance and Counselor. I believe that you should talk to your children about it, because in the first place, they ought not to have the guts to say it. It's not acceptable. Nothing is going to make it acceptable. As long as it's not acceptable by God's standard, I don't see why man should make it acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. And do we have anyone else who has a contribution to give? All right.
Alright, apparently I have a friend that's supposedly gay. Do I have to stay away from him, or what do you suggest I do?
To answer your question, in my opinion, I believe the person, your friend, should be treated with love and respect, and then should be given a room for change.
Thank you, Ms. Amaka. I strongly believe our values, our culture, most especially our religion, should be the change, especially God. Thank you.
Wow. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you, our respondents, our audience. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a wonderful show. We've talked about so much. We've learned so much from each other. Just a big thank you to you guys.
I really hope you join us again next time.
Thank you once again for watching Team Middle. Thank you so much. But then again, this show wouldn't have been possible without our sponsors. And I'm taking this time out to mention just a few of them. Thank you, Nathan Leadgate. Thank you, Knowledge Station International. Thank you, Rapid Focus. Thank you, Dio Generali. Thank you, Pixel Doctor. Thank you, MBU Pro. Thank you, Just Us Nigeria. Thank you to Dola. With you guys, Vivian, and she will also mention some of them.
Thank you, Ajibota Inc., Star Essence, Alpha Tech, Old Religion, yourplaylist.blogspot.com, Leaving Me Inspired, TIN, The Imperfect Lover, Safe International, and Lens Lights.
And together we are
Team
Hey, remain.